Hi guys. Well, I've looked at the hardware and the peripherals, so today I'd like to talk about the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 user interfaces. I'm not going to be drilling down too much into the depths of the settings because frankly I'd be here till next Christmas. Rather, what I want to look at is the experience of using the two UIs, how fast and responsive they are, how easy they are to navigate and how quickly you can get to your games and apps. I've already covered some of this for the Xbox when I spoke about the new Xbox experience, so I'd like to start by taking a look at the PS4, but I'll come back to the Xbox. The first thing that I noticed about the PS4's user interface when compared to the original Xbox UI was how clean and uncluttered it looked, and how fast it seemed in comparison. 2 years on and it still feels clean, uncluttered and fast, on the surface at least, but there are some minor niggles that irritate me and it's no longer the fastest UI in town in every respect. So what about speed? Well, boot from standby is around 38.43 seconds, though since the most recent update it keeps briefly flashing rebuilding database, which adds a couple of seconds and sometimes more. It's a minor gripe, but one that's affecting quite a few people and therefore needs addressing. But how quickly does it load games? Well, Wolfenstein the Old Blood loads in around about 46 seconds. Assassin's Creed Black Flag loads in around 34 seconds, and Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes loads in around 35 seconds. I'll have a look at the speed at which the Xbox One loads these same games in a moment so we can compare them. As I said earlier, the interface looks clean with large tiles for navigation, but once you start to use it, a few minor niggles soon become apparent. Firstly, the What's New section is a bit of a dog's breakfast, being populated as it is by seemingly random and unconnected items that range from useful notices to adverts. Personally, I hate it and try to steer clear of it if at all possible. Then there's the main ribbon where all your games and apps appear. It's fairly simple and easy to use, but why is the store at the far left, where it's easy to find, while the library, with most of my games etc., is far over to the right, where you have to scroll over to find it? Either have them both on the far left or swap them over, because as it stands it feels like Sony are more interested in me spending my time buying stuff than they are in encouraging me to play games or use apps. And of course they are, they're a business after all. But do they have to be so blatant about it? And if they are going to keep the library on the far right, they could at least add the ability to scroll quickly by using the triggers or the R1 and L1 shoulder buttons, rather than being stuck going through one tile at a time, which feels really slow and clunky, which frankly it is. And it makes getting into a game you haven't played for a while quite laborious. The other issue I have here is to do with the fact that you pull down on the left trigger to access information etc. for games and some apps. But for others, such as Live from PlayStation, the store or the internet browser, you have to press X to go into it. Now, I can understand this for the browser and the store, but it makes no sense at all for Live from PlayStation. And if you're going to have items that are accessed differently, why not group them together, or at least give the user the ability to do that for themselves? Minor gripes aside though, and to be fair they are minor gripes, this part of the interface is fairly easy to use with recent games and apps easy to access. As is the ribbon dedicated to settings etc. This is actually pretty well laid out and makes accessing its content a fairly painless exercise. The new Xbox experience is much closer to the PS4 interface than would at first appear. Where with the PS4 you scroll right to get to your games and apps, with the Xbox you scroll down. And if you want to get to the guide on the Xbox, you flick the left thumbstick to the left, while the PS4 equivalent is accessed by flicking the left thumbstick up. Boot time from standby with the Xbox is around about 10 seconds, which is blisteringly fast, but it's not quite as fast at loading games as the PS4. Wolfenstein the Old Blood takes about 52 seconds, Assassin's Creed Black Flag takes 37 seconds, and Metal Gear Solid 5 Ground Zeroes takes about 46 seconds. All of these are a little bit slower than on the PS4, although it's not a huge deal. Where the Xbox has a slight advantage is in how fast you can get to the games and apps. This is done using the right trigger to jump down to My Stuff, and as I said before, I find it hard to see why Sony haven't opted for something similar. But the Xbox interface isn't perfect either. There's the occasional log-on issue where the console fails to load user-specific content, which means you have to log out and back on again in order to restore it. This is easily solved with a hard reboot, which can be done several ways, but the quickest method is to turn the Xbox One off, unplug it for 10 seconds, then turn it back on again. Once this is done, the problem should go away. In my previous video, I mentioned the Kinect and its voice commands. These are very good and offer an alternative for navigating around the user interface. Xbox Show Guide. Xbox Go Home. Xbox Go to My Games and Apps. Xbox Go Home. But the PS4 also offers voice controls, and unlike the Xbox, which requires the Kinect, these can be accessed without the need for the PlayStation camera. You simply need to plug a headset into the PS4 controller and away you go. PlayStation. Start settings. Home screen. PlayStation. PlayStation. Library. Settings. Home screen. They're not as comprehensive as the Xbox commands, which allow you to do pretty much anything with voice commands. And the advantage of having only to use a mic can become a disadvantage if, like me, you don't always have the mic plugged in. But it's a nice option to have available. Personally, I'd like to see more commands before I find it genuinely useful, as there are currently some glaring omissions, such as the ability to record game footage, but maybe that will come in the future. So anyway, if you are buying either of these consoles based on ease of use, speed and general feel of the user interface, which one would you go for? Well, as ever, that's the $64,000 question. If I'd been answering that question 6 months ago, I would have said that the PS4 interface was superior. It was fast and easy to use most of the time, despite the odd niggle here and there, and the occasional bad choice as regards layout. But since the introduction of the new Xbox One experience, the Xbox front end has improved no end, with everything being much faster and navigation becoming a real joy most of the time. Both can feel a little buggy at times, and Sony's offering feels more buggy now than it did before the most recent update, with the rebuilding database issue being particularly annoying. But occasional sign-in issues on the Xbox One, minor though they are, mean that while it's far better than it was before the new Xbox One experience, it still needs some polish. Now, these are obviously my own experiences, and the slight niggles I have experienced may be something you don't encounter. But whether you do or not, I'd have to say that as it stands, the Xbox just about shades it as regards the user interface. It's marginally faster in most cases, with the obvious exceptions of the ability to load games. It's slightly easier to navigate, especially for a new user, and is enjoyable to use. The PS4, while far from being bad, feels just a little bit too idiosyncratic at times, though to be fair, they're both idiosyncratic at times. But there's nothing to either interface that should put you off buying either a PS4 or an Xbox One. And even while I prefer the new interface on the Xbox One over that of the PS4, it's not difficult to see that some people might prefer Sony's offering. As was the case with peripherals, see if you can get some time with the UIs before you purchase. But if you can't, don't worry. I doubt there's anything in either UI that would upset you so much that you'd be put off making a purchase. Right, well, that's it for today. Don't hesitate to comment and let me know what you think. Do you prefer the PS4 or the Xbox One user interface? Are there any features you'd like to see added, and what do you make of the issues with the systems? I'm especially interested if there's anyone out there who's got both systems and, have their own take on things. Let me know in the comments below. And I'll speak to you guys again soon. Bye.